Hi everyone, and welcome to the Remain Indoors podcast, where we'll be looking at some lighter news from around the internet, catching up with our network of radio and podcast friends, and having a grumble when required. Remain indoors. Hi, I'm your host, Richard Spanners Ready. We'll be on the stream for the next 40 minutes or so, talking about life and food and what we're doing to keep ourselves entertained. We've also got a fantastic guest lined up for you today, but I can't do anything without my co-host, Matt Two Rumpets. How's it going, Matt?
It's going great. You know that complete and total mistake that I made and accidentally paying for a month of HBO?
Oh, yes. I use this tactic on my wife all the time. Oh, no, don't worry. I will definitely cancel it. It's free. What can go wrong? It's a free trial, Nick.
What could go wrong?
Yeah,
certainly not a second month of HBO.
So I take it you are getting all catched up on Westworld.
Yes, but last night I was given free reign with the remote. And do you know what's on HBO now?
Well, it's American, so food programs and crashes.
John Wick 3.
Okay. I mean, that film is completely ridiculous escapism. And my wife saw the trailer and went, nah. So I watched it on my own. It's fantastic.
It was loads of fun, and the wife was up to something, the kid was up to something, and they're just like, yeah, just really watch whatever you want. I'm like, really? They're like, really? I'm like, okay.
Wow.
And it was fun.
We are pathetic, Matt. The conversations we have where we just spend our whole lives asking permission to do things. You are a 75-year-old man, yet you have no agency over your own life.
I just closed the office door and am grateful that I have my own little universe in here that I get to play in.
Oh, you know I complain about Nicola using this shed now to do all her online stuff and to keep the businesses going. Okay, there's a plus side. Last night, she was up, she knows the pain now, video and audio editing in the shed, and I actually had the house to myself, and I set up the living room with VR, I played online paintball, and I got told off by the kids because apparently I was making gun noises even though the game has its own gun noises. So I was kind of still going, pow, splat, paintball in the face, in your face, paintball. And the kids were like, Dad, it makes the sound for you.
Yeah, well, they've clearly grown up in a different generation than you or I. Because how could you not make noises when you're shooting fake guns? I just don't understand.
My gun noise is pow, 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 which is the correct one. I will also accept but a lot of the other ones are dodgy. No laser sounds, please. Matt, we had an email that I want to read out. We've had a few iTunes reviews as well that I'll get to on Thursday. That's when we next do one. Hey Spanners, says Troy. I've reached out before. I just wanted to throw you a message as I'm getting such a kick out of Remain Indoors. You're such a blast as a host and just kill me with your dry humor, heavily butchering titles of other people's shows and books. Unbelievable. That is slander, Troy. And taking the mickey out of your guests. I laugh out loud to myself. Thanks, man. Quick thoughts. Has anyone done a compilation of trumpets saying no or yes, as he always does when he begins his sentences?
Well.
Wow, you've added one. Wow, I like it. Really cool. Brilliant. Hey, let's bring our guest on, Matt. I'm really excited today to introduce you, the panel, to my friend Alice Ryan, who is an actress, journalist, and film producer. Alice, welcome to the shed.
Thank you very much for having me. It's going to be great.
Oh, Alice, honestly, you have got a range of skills, but I first met you as a travel reporter popping up on the BBC, and they say, oh, let's go to the travel now. You press a button, and a mysterious voice appears, and you kind of get to just jump in, do your travel report, and get out. I mean, normally. However, you and I, we built up quite a rapport over the last sort of 18 months.
We certainly did, yeah. I think I took you by surprise by some of the bizarre improv that I would throw you, a few Trekkie references, a few bizarre jokes, and so you realised I wasn't your average travel presenter.
They're not all the same, travel reporters, when they pop in, and you know, this is BBC and it's fairly serious, but like I noticed that you would be sort of listening to whatever it was we'd be talking about. So I was talking about Star Trek one time, And I think you ended a travel report by saying that you could be beamed up or some Star Trek reference you dropped in. I went, oh, I like this person.
Beam me up spanners, I think was what it was.
Oh, yes, there we go. What's the brief? Do they give you a brief at the travel centre? Do they say, well, you must be very serious, travel is very important?
Well, actually, it depends on which station you're on. So there are some
Oh.
where they want you to be pretty funky and groovy. Some of them don't interact, don't respond to. So there's one that I do, and the presenter is always really chatty and really lovely. But the brief is try not to have any banter with them.
Oh,
And it's
really?
really difficult when Joe is such a nice presenter. There we go. It's BBC Surrey. They're
Oh, well.
lovely, really,
Okay,
really
good.
nice. There we go. But the rules are you shouldn't really be having sort of certain interactions with people. Some it's a little bit more relaxed. Some of it's definitely in out. Don't interact with the presenter. I know that there's one where they expect you to do sort of a 20-second bulletin, and even if nothing's going on, it has to be as groovy as possible. So you'll be hearing
Groovy?
one of it's groovy. It's got to be
How
groovy.
can you- Okay, well, what? I mean, that's a weird brief. How groovy is my intro? Is my intro groovy? Is it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. But what they're suggesting we should do, I'm sort of using the word groovy. I don't think that's official language, but
Okay, good.
I'll be hearing my colleague doing the traffic and travel for this particular radio station, and he's sort of saying things like, "Well, if you're heading out to yoga this afternoon, this particular road's looking okay, and there's no sheep on the road here," and it's you're sort of trying to do your own bulletin, going, "What are you talking about?" So some of them are very, very relaxed, and some of them not so much.
Yeah, it's
And I
interesting.
think you're just in between.
It's interesting to know that you get actually a specific brief with those stations. Obviously we have procedures as well, and the one time I got told off, it's not like a not like a court martial or anything, but there's a magic button, Matt. I don't know if you have it the same in the UK, in the US. When you're driving along, suddenly your station can be interrupted with a travel report or breaking news.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's a funny thing as a musician. Most of my driving I do to gigs in mega traffic, so I tended to listen to the stations that had the traffic reports every
right. Yeah, yeah.
5 or 10 minutes, and not so much the music. Or I listen to the jazz station to keep myself occupied. I'm laughing though because Alice mentioned like groovy is a brief, and like I cannot
Yes.
tell you the words that put into my head, but it made me think of a time when we did a joint production with Atlanta Symphony back when I was in college, and the assistant principal player was playing principal. Actually, he wasn't. He was like, I want to play third, because he was doing a big solo with the actual symphony. And he goes, do you know how the conductor told me to play this solo? I was like, no, how? He goes, or he complained about the solo. He criticized it as being, quote, too Centurion-like.
Oh,
And I'm just like, that's going to just help so much, isn't it?
yeah, that guy needs to climb out of his own butt and just. My dad used to do things like that though, because my dad went to a grammar school, so there was a little bit of like Latin, and I'm sure he knew about as much Latin as I know French or German, but he would lord that over. So he'd go, ah, yes, Domini I abhorrium or whatever, and then he would pause, as if everyone in the room would definitely know what it is, but knowing that no one would. So then you'd have to go, oh, well, what was that, Dad? What does that mean? Oh, you need an explanation, do you? And you go, oh, you knew everyone would need an explanation. So that's the only reason to use words like that, Matt. What was it again? What was that adjective?
Too Centurion-like.
Too Centurion-like. I'm going to use that in a sentence today. Try that at home. Ask your doctor if Centurion is right for you. Right, what were we talking about? RDS, travel report. So, if you're driving along, you suddenly get a travel report. That is because I've pressed a button that makes a jingle come up, and that series of notes sets off something called RDS, which, if your car is set to that setting, it activates the travel news in your radio.
I don't know if Alice is feeling the same way, but it seems like this is headed towards I accidentally pressed the button one time and kind of story.
Okay, there's many of those. No. This wasn't that. However, I got told off because I would press the button, it would spark up, I'd bring Alice up, and then I'd be like, oh, Alice likes chatting about things. Hey, Alice, we've been talking about dogs with fluffy tails. What's your favourite dog with a fluffy tail? And Alice would be like, oh, I've got 7 dogs and I've got my own fluffy tail. And then I got told off because really we should have had those chats before I set the entire county's radios to listen to the travel report.
No, So most of the area have been listening to us just talking about stuff, and
Yeah.
I'd love it if there was an actual timer, and all we've done is talked about whatever you were talking about, and then we didn't actually get to the travel.
No, it's limitless power because there's another button that ends it. So when it
Okay.
goes, oh, you go, thank you, Alice, do, and then that turns that off. I think that is the official jingle. Do. So that is why you might have noticed over the last few months that I've been fading you up, saying, hi, Alice, blah, 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 blah. And then when the conversation gets too stupid, that's when I press the jingle button.
Oh.
And then I don't get told off. And I don't get
It's
into
far
trouble.
too professional, Spanus. None
I
of that,
know.
please.
But I think it's important. I'm really glad that we've had that dynamic over the last 18 months or so, because you're alone in a glass booth, and I'm very used to the format I've come from is like with Matt, it's very conversationalist. And then I'm alone in a glass booth, and it's like, yay, a person. I'm going to talk to them for as long as I can. And then, they're like, could you not occupy 5 minutes of the travel lady's time? And could you, play some music every now and then? But yeah, it's fun. And as long as I'm not getting you in trouble at your end, long may it continue.
No, you know what? I've never had anyone call in or any of the bosses sort of say, oh, I'm sorry, there's too much chat. It's actually really nice when you're in the studios to listen what other people have been talking about. So you sort of have a rough idea of which station they're talking to, because you can hear them talking about what they ate over the weekend or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, they're having a chat with that guy. That's cool. And that sort of thing. And people that just get straight in, straight out, you know exactly who they're talking to. It's really nice to interact. I really enjoy it. My ultimate panic, though, is that presenters maybe don't know that we have such a limited time to jump in.
Yeah.
It's a bulletin. You got 3 minutes. You jump out. You dial into a different station, which could be on the other side of the country. So I just get really, really nervous that someone's going to come to me when I've just dialed in and say, "So what do you think, Alice?" Or a sporting question where I just have to sort of go. I know I can improvise, but sometimes the panic is seriously real.
Well,
so thank you for the prep.
Yeah, I try and get on the pre-fade and warn you. Or I'll go, Alice, I know you were listening in. I know you attentively listened to the show. Blah, blah, blah. This is what we were talking about. Because you get the feeling that, we're giving away secrets here, but all the travel is centrally sourced. And then, so I was driving through Oxfordshire, I think, and I caught Claire Sharp, who normally speaks to me. And I went, Claire's here as well? What's going on? What sick betrayal is this? So you guys have all got to do it centrally. And one of your colleagues, who I won't name, who's a comedian called Dave, read the entirely wrong travel report out. So he read the South Coast travel report out, and I was only half listening, and then he's on about the New Forest. I went, hang on a minute. Is he just... You've never done that, Alice, though, just read out the wrong county.
I did once, and thank goodness it was, they said, I'm really sorry, we won't have time to come to you right now, so we're going to record this. So can you just say the bulletin down the line, say your out cue, and then that's it. And I started to read it, and thankfully the producer was actually paying attention and went, I don't think that's us. And then I was looking at, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so they could have just let it run, play it out, and I could have really embarrassed myself. Thankfully, they caught me in time. That's the only one time that's ever happened. But the panic is real when I get right to the bottom and I'm about to read the out cue, and I suddenly have a strange moment in my brain that goes, is this correct? Am I talking to the right station?
Excellent. But Alice, I think the reason that you're so good is because you're not just a reporter. And obviously, humans are very self-centric. So to me, you are the voice that does the travel. So that must be your career, your ambition, and that you're sat there just trying to be just the best travel reporter you can be, so that one day you can be head travel reporter and the queen of travel reports. And that's how I kind of saw the career structure. In reality, a lot of the guys that do that travel report, some of the best ones, you look into it and it turns out that they are actors and actresses. So yourself and Claire are actresses. Dave Chawner, who's on there, is a stand-up comic. And so I went like that with Dave Chawner. I went, this guy's so funny. So I Googled him, and he's like, oh, he's a stand-up comedian. Okay, that makes perfect sense now. But a lot of why you're so good on those interactions is, what part of your life does the improv acting take?
I would say I am an actor, and the radio work and the traffic and travel helps pay the bills, because acting work is not, even in Hollywood, you don't get a job every single day. So actually, I'm now ticking all of the boxes that I wanted since I was about 5, which is having radio support the acting career and being all part of it. I class radio as still creative work as well, but I would say I'm an actor, voiceover artist, producer, And then, yeah, the traffic and travel and supporting your good self, Spanners,
Yeah.
is obviously like, you know, up in there, but secondary, I would say.
Well, my show reel consists of quite a few of our interactions because, you know, but I think you drag me up because of your improv work. And in fact, Matt, you were aware of this as well. Alice was helping my little daughter by giving us improv exercises to do for her auditions.
Yeah, that is still one of my favorite stories. No, they didn't help at all. I had to make things up on the spot.
I don't know if I told you that, Alice. Did I tell you that one?
Did you not tell her the story?
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
this is brilliant.
Yeah, they did. It was lovely. We'd been talking about it and discussing stuff. And I think there were some games that I'd given you that I think you had heard of, so we could adapt. And I said, they are adaptable. Just basically have as much fun as possible. And I loved it. She just came out and went, nothing helped at all.
She was like, none of those improv things helped. I just had to make stuff up. I'm like, yes, we're helping you make stuff up. But yeah, she gets it now. She understands that improv side.
It's just wonderful, isn't it? Because we take it for granted, and then a kid comes out with something, and you go, "What?" And then you think, "Oh no, of course she doesn't quite get that the games want to open your brain so that when you go into the audition, you are making stuff up and you're more relaxed."
Yeah, so I think maybe
Brilliant.
she was expecting, because we'd been practicing that so much, that they were just going to play those games in the audition. No, but she loved that. But when you say improv, we get a vision in our head of there's three guys on stage guys and girls in like all black, and they go, okay, say the name of a fish and a town near Albuquerque, and we'll create a love story with a murder. And is that close to the...
Yes, there's lots of different ways that you can use improv. So I have worked with the Laughter Academy in Southend. They have bases in Chelmsford as well. And they end up, we do a lot of the games that I gave you actually on stage. So sometimes we'll then call out to the audience, right, okay, give us a celebrity and then this, that and the other. So it's playing games on stage, not necessarily all in black. And then you can actually do it in lots of different ways. So there's Showstoppers, who are musical theatre improvers that you can see in London at the moment. I think they've got something set up ready for anyone who's going to miss Eurovision this year. And they create musicals and sing and dance based off suggestions from the audience.
Jeez.
So they have no idea what people are going to ask for, and then we'll create an entire musical. And we did a 24-hour improvathon before.
That's too many hours.
We had particular characters that we knew about, and each scene the director would be on stage leading it. So this one was set in a Victorian hotel, and our director would say, oh, and in this scene the chef then bumps into the detective we saw last scene, and then something would go ahead, and then she'd guide it or she'd jump in with something else. And Ali James, who was our director, has done 36-hour 48-hour improvs before.
Bloody hell. Is that a swear? I don't know if that's a swear, but the thought of doing improv for 36 hours is horrendous.
Going on stage with no script. I'm very much, I've been trained and used to script work, so I love the improv because it takes me out of my comfort zone, but I am definitely one of these people that's having a pure panic attack every time I get on stage. And what's really funny is a lot of the people that I know that have done it aren't necessarily performers, and I think strangely enough they are slightly better at it than someone like me, because they can just go in with no preconceptions whatsoever and just have a lot of fun with it. Whereas a small part of me is going, well, that scene should then continue to this, and am I standing the right way in the projection and all this kind of jazz. So yeah, it's a lot harder than you think, but so much fun.
I mean, what we're doing here and what we do on radio is sort of closer to improv, I guess. But I've done like a little bit of where you've got a script, say voiceover work, or, as you know, Matt, my recent turn as the policeman in Liam Taylor's radio play. I know you loved all of my accents on there, Matt.
Yeah, no, it's far more impressive than my only acting credit, which was a major Hollywood film.
Oh, right, hang on a minute. You were playing trumpet in that, weren't you? Which is what you just do all the time.
Yeah, they hired the band. They have a deal, Hollywood does, with 802, and they would hire actual musicians to be musicians in scenes. And so it was, it was the film Hitch, I think, with
Will Smith.
Will Smith.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, but the reason I bring it up, it actually makes me laugh. I don't think I'm actually in the film at all. But they couldn't. But he took half the musicians and put them in the shot, and the other half were on stage, so they couldn't figure out who was where. So they just paid us all. So I still get residuals from it, which is nice. But when you brought up like radio paying the bills for the acting, they had two separate sets of catering, one for the non-SAG and one for the SAG people. SAG
Yeah.
being the Actors Guild, and one of the actors, dressed up in his costumes, everything like that. I saw him go back to the SAG table about 6 times, fill up paper plates and napkins full of food, and quietly squirrel them away in his various belongings over the course of the time we were sat there waiting for our scene to be filmed, which was pretty much a whole day. And it's a much harder road than I think a lot of people appreciate, because all they do is see the people in the films and on TV and think, how hard could that possibly be?
Yeah, it's hours filming and TV stuff, especially films. It's hours and hours, days even. I did some extra work for the Suffragette movie with Meryl Streep, and we were doing night shoots in the cold in London in dodgy Victorian gear as extras for 4 days doing the same scene. And you
Yeah.
weren't even sure when they were going to feed you because they were on such a tight deadline. If we went over, you didn't know if you were going to get any food at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, it's a lot more work than people think. A lot of work goes behind putting something together for theatre and TV and screen.
Well, we're on extras. I've ever mentioned this. I've done some extras work as well when I was
Have you?
when I was like 18 or something. And I guess it's the sort of thing where you go, I'm going to go and try and get an agent and try and be in entertainment. Okay, so to advance the story a little bit, I was in camouflage gear within 6 months of this story, so clearly it didn't go very well. But getting an agent, and a lot of people when they say, "Oh, I've got an agent," what they've done is they've fallen foul of agents who go out and they make money from people thinking they're gonna get work, basically, and then they charge them for the photos, so they make money for charging them the photos. And then you see yourself in a catalogue, you get very excited. And out of that, I got one extras gig for a Pepsi commercial with Danny Bear and Christian Little. Are those that's Christian Little? It was the guys who did The Word. You're too young to remember The Word.
Oh no, it's ringing a bell. Oh gosh.
It was.
I know who you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was real like car crash TV late night stuff. But yeah, so I was on that set for a day, so it was like a 16-hour day, for like 50 quid or something horrendous. And we were doing a lot of like dancing in the background, or being contestants in games where everyone had to go and eat dog food, and whoever's dog food was not dog food, it was a pie. They were like, "Oh yeah, no, I found the pie." So but it was all fixed because it was for an ad. But what just struck me was like Terry Christian. What did I say? Oh, thank you, chat room. That's the best thing about having a chat room. Can you see the chat room, Alice?
I don't think I can, but
Oh,
as you can probably tell with my fantastic camera that I've got, I probably don't have the technological.
Yeah, good point. With your computer,
what's it doodah for this?
with your
but,
computer,
yeah.
let's not risk it. Let's not
not
risk
risk
it.
it.
But yeah, Terry Christian. It's a really interesting, like really long, drawn out day. By the time it got to late night, they were doing the club scenes, and we all got told as extras, we were going, right, don't tell anyone now from now on in that you're with an agency, that you're getting paid, because what they were doing was they were just dragging people out of nightclubs going, "Who wants to be on telly?" And they were like, "Yeah, I want to be on telly." So they just filled up the scene with just drunk people who were otherwise in a nightclub.
That's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely
shocking.
terrible. Only some of you getting paid. That's the risk. I think I did one bit of extra work, and there was lots of mutterings about who got paid. And it turns out we were sort of a mixture of one extras agency and another extras agency. And it turned out they were getting paid more than us, and we were doing exactly the same thing. So that caused a lot of problems when we went to go and get our sheets signed at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Issues.
So not a great industry. I know there are some people who really love making a career as an extra, but after just one day doing that kind of thing, it was so boring, because they want everybody ready for when they need you, and you're just so much sitting around, and it was pointless. And then you'll occasionally get yelled at for pulling a face or looking at the camera. Oh, look, a camera! Look at that! That's amazing.
There is so much waiting around. People don't realize. If you know anyone, particularly a young person who's desperate to become famous, sign them up to an extras agency, and then they'll see how hard it is. So they, as the background person, will be sitting around for ages in an uncomfortable costume, especially if it's film work. It'll be hours and hours and hours. You don't know when you're going to get fed, and then you'll watch these actors having to do the same stressful thing over and over again, and they might realize that actually there is a lot of hard work. Extras agency, sign up to it. You can't really put it on your CV as an actor, because you are just third person from the left in the background. So your agent won't necessarily want you having that on your CV. And yes, extras agencies are slightly different. You can pay up front to be part of that. But if you are looking for an agent for professional work, if they ask for money, don't go nowhere near them. What your agent should do is get you a job first, and then they'll take a certain amount of money from you from that first job. So just putting it out there, if anyone's interested, extra work, do it. It's great fun. You're getting paid to eat and sit around in costumes and chat to people. It's great fun. Just boring at points.
And just know what it is and know what it is you're getting into. So So when my daughter, because my daughter has an agent, Roger Schmadger, Roger. Yeah. So I was like, all right, this is a con. Where's the catch? But it's a proper one. But yeah, no, it was an interesting glimpse into that world. But what I really wanted to talk to you about was sort of some of the mechanics of improv, because I've always found it really impressive how you always seem to have an answer to a story. And at one point, I was thinking, I have questions on my show. What is, tell me about the most tragic way in which you've accidentally killed a family pet or something like that. Or usually less morbid. But whatever topic I had, I'd go to the production team of one and be like, hey, Nats, have you ever done such and such things? Oh, no, I'm not really into that. All right, cool. Won't use you today for that topic. See what calls and tweets and texts come in. But with you, I was like, you always had something. And I was like, hang on a minute. It's because you're an improv actress, and part of that philosophy is just going with everything, and being responsible for the flow and conversation, especially when you've got 18 hours, 24 hours, 36-hour improv sets. The whole never shutting it down thing I find fascinating, and I'd like it if you could just teach me something.
The main line of improv that I've been taught is always yes and. So if we were doing a scene together and we were talking about going to the supermarket and we need to buy something, we need to buy dog food for our pet, instead of, we'd start it off by saying we'll be going to the supermarket and we have to get this. Instead of sort of saying, oh no, I want to go here and try this, you start with yes and. You do a mat and you start with yes. And then it just takes you down whatever road you want. So there's a great game that you can play where you just start saying a sentence and then the person opposite you just has to respond with yes, and then we can do this, or yes, and then I wore this, and yes, I then went here. So a lot of the stories are all true. I'm not completely making it all up.
No.
But I just have to go with the yes and philosophy.
No,
yes, and I can definitely talk about this.
So I'm not accusing you of lying, is what I just meant was, even if it's something that doesn't particularly appeal to you, it's not on your mind, and it's not the greatest story in the world, like you made something interesting out of owning a cactus. Whereas I'm sure if it was your show and your content, you wouldn't say, do you know what I want to do this morning? I want to go on radio and talk about my cactus. So you never shut it down by going, yeah, it's just a plant. Yeah, of course I've got a cactus. It's just a plant. Who cares?
So because it's not going to be interesting to watch or listen to if you just go, no, I haven't got any plants. I haven't got a garden. Full stop. Where else are you supposed to go with that? And that's not fair for your person on stage or your colleagues either. So yes, and if you're going to do improv, yes, and.
Yes, and I just got to point out that the chat room making fun of me for starting out my sentences that way. Ha! I am now full of vindication. And secondly, I do find the no sometimes a great deal of fun just to see what Spanners can come up with when he comes to me expecting me to go on like a 10-minute long-winded diatribe about something. Instead, I'll just go, yes. Yeah. And they do my Warner Brothers frog imitation.
Well, a lot of times I will throw to Matt because there's something technical I need to address, or because I'm the producer here as well. So I'm trying to line up a bumper or a scene or something. And Matt, he can sense it. He can sense when I really need him to carry on. He'll just go, no, I don't agree with that. Yeah, but in what way don't you agree, Matt? In what way don't you agree? So a lot of those games, there's so much fun. Like the games that you got me playing with the kids. Obviously, you can do one word each and create a story, and I'll release on this channel actually they're private at the moment. But actually, I recorded them because this used to be my family, my personal channel that I would share things with like relatives abroad. And I was like, oh, we need a channel for Remain Indoors. So I quickly rebranded it and forgot to take. But all the videos are there where we played the game. So I'll make them private, public. But the games where you do one story, one word each, and you create a story. And what was the other one you had me do? I can't.
What is it? What's in the box? So you have an imaginary box.
Yes, what's in the box? Brilliant. And it was never a severed head before anyone says that.
What's in the box? Yeah, and you take an item out. So I would have a box here. Imaginary box, and Spanners would say, what's in the box? And I say a giraffe. And then I'd hand the box to Spanners and I would say, what's in the box? And it just has to be whatever comes to the forefront of your head. And then eventually what you end up doing is you say a giraffe and you'd either add a color or an emotion, and you can slowly but surely build it up. So by the end, you're saying it's a purple giraffe that enjoys badminton at the weekend. It's just relaxing your brain to think of just going with your gut instinct with whatever's going to come out of your mouth. And you can then turn that into a scene.
So at first, like, my daughter was like, "What? That's not a box. There's not. What do you mean? What's in the box? There's nothing in the box." Yeah, so eventually, she got to grips with it, and she'd be like, "Oh, it's a butterfly," and then I'd come back with her, yes, but the butterfly has only seconds to live, and it needs to get one final message to its." Do you know what? It's not me being morbid. It's the kids are super morbid. All their stories, like all my son's stories, end up with me being killed in horrific ways, and so he's not so good with the improv. He shuts down the stories, Matt, because he's always like, and then Dad fell off a cliff and got eaten by a shark.
I'm sure there's no mental health professionals that would have any comment about your home life based on that.
I guess I'm quite mean to them, but then again, my daughter turned around to me yesterday. She saw me with a slight limp, just a very slight limp from our exercise the other day, and she said, "Dad, is it time we got you one of those chair elevators that they use for old men that can't use their legs anymore?" And I'm like, jeez, she's 8 years old and she's just giving me that deadpan level of grief.
Oh, the sass. Love it.
Well, she came on this podcast on Thursday. She jumped on the end of the show to give us a book review. But she was under strict orders. I'm like, V, can you just not openly insult me? That's the only restriction. Just don't openly insult me. I guess we'll have to relax that over time because she can be quite funny. But yeah, back to the improv games. Yeah, it just opens you up to a new way of thinking. But I think the problem with improv is it's like Othello. You know, the game Reverse Eye. It's like a board game. No, hang on. This is a really bad analogy. I'm gonna go all the way back and just say, improv is the kind of thing where you can kind of instantly get the spirit of it, get very excited, but then it takes a long time to master. But I think that might lead to a lot of bad improv thinking it's good improv. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's weird because there aren't any rules, but there are. So the yes and trying not to shut people down. As I said before, I've worked with a lot of people who aren't necessarily performers who have latched onto the idea of sort of letting your brain go on stage marvelously, but the actual stagecraft is slightly different, or they will come up with something, that will end up sort of taking the story down a certain route. And you have to sort of call everyone back in and say, well, actually, because you took it down that route, we then got really stuffed 2 or 3 scenes down the line. So what you need to do is this, that, and the other. So there are rules, but there aren't. It's very difficult. And at the same time, really easy. It's a very strange performance technique. Whose Line Is It Anyway? If you've never seen that, check it out on YouTube and you'll have more of an idea. Those are professionals who are doing it all the time, of the kind of stuff that we end up doing. But a lot of people who, as I say, aren't performers have actually ended up using improv in their day-to-day lives and have come back the next day and said, I had to use improv in a presentation and it went so well. And I just thought, if I can get up on stage and do a scene not knowing where on earth it's going to go, I've just been able to stand up in a room of 500 people and talk about this for work, and it was absolutely fine. So I would highly recommend it for confidence building.
I have considered, it feels a little bit kind of, I don't want to be the guy somehow who goes, oh yeah, in my spare time, I'm just off to my improv class. It's a little bit like, yeah, I'm just off to my yoga class.
Own it. Own it. I do improv. Yes, I do that. I do filmmaking. Yes, I talk on the radio. Yes, I do this. Own it, Spanners. Own it. You went to an improv class and you were fabulous.
So, but what I tend to do actually with all these shows is I surround myself with experts. So I surround myself with experts to teach me about stuff. Dr. Andrew Holding been teaching me about science. I learn about running from Lauren. That's, I've tried to recreate that here on Remain Indoors. From Nick, we learn accounting, which was a terrible idea. That was dull. It was the worst show ever. He's definitely the worst guest that we've had. So when I speak to you, I get that expertise from you. So in a way, I'm trying to tease the improv out of you so that I don't have to go and do lessons.
And that's absolutely fine. That is absolutely fine. Yes, and Spanners. Yes, and.
Yes, and well, certainly with presenting, it definitely helps because, like you said, it's about the flow and it's about making sure that you don't go down any dead ends and you think about the overall production. Now, in the chat room, Mark Greenow says, I've seen some terrible improv at the Edinburgh Festival. Do you ever go to the Edinburgh Festival?
You know what? I've never had the chance to. And it's on the dream list. I feel like I'm not a real actor until I've performed in the Bill, too late now, or been to the Edinburgh Fringe.
Oh, is the Bill finished? Is that done?
That's all done. That was it. I think my nan says, well, you never got on the Bill, so...
They must have caught all the bad guys, and that's why it finished.
That's it.
That was, as a kid, it was the Bill and Casualty. So the Bill, it was always the guy who seemed nice at first. He always done it in the end. And you go, oh, that's a surprise. Casualty is whoever's performing a seemingly menial task at the beginning of the show. You go, oh, he's going to end up in
the one.
In what way is he going to get hurt? So obviously, not having done Edinburgh, notwithstanding, there must have been improv shows where it just didn't work. So for Whose Line Is It Anyway? There's a cut-off point. There's a natural cut-off point. The buzzer goes off, and then they can reset and start again.
Yeah.
But there must have been times where you've just felt completely artistically exposed when things are not going to plan.
And that's absolutely fine because you're not going to hit the mark every single time, or you'll have a huge audience and you'll have one scene where only one person will laugh, but the rest of the audience are going, not my cup of tea. That's okay. You made that one person laugh, and the next scene you'll make everyone laugh, and that's absolutely fine. So I think also it's getting up on stage and understanding you don't have to be hilarious every single scene. You can be the straight person to someone else's comedy within a scene. You can just let it roll. It can be a serious scene. It doesn't necessarily have to be comedy. It could just be two people having an argument, but it not being so aggressive and so shut down. So it's just a piece of performance on stage. And that's another thing to just remember with it, is to just be relaxed and open, and you may not hit all the markers, and that's absolutely fine.
Do you think it lends itself better to comedy, though?
I think so, yeah, because you can get in, do a quick almost sketch, and then get out again. And there's a lot of games that are like that, where you just come in. The accent game is hilarious because most people that I know, we haven't actually done accent training even when we were at drama school. So we'll be coming in doing accents, and you do one line of an accent and one line of an accent, and people just coming on stage doing these terrible accents. Brilliant. You just come on and say 3 words and leave because the audience are cracking up because you sound horrendous, and they'll be laughing at you not being able to do something, and that's okay as well. Owning it.
Can you give us a snippet? Can we experiment on Matt?
Uh-oh.
Can we experiment on Matt? How would you get someone to do an accent? Let's see if we can get Matt to do an accent. How do you do it, Alice? Do you just go, right, you're now Dutch?
Yeah, you just say, okay, we've got a scene here where 2 people are talking about their fish ponds, but they're both from Sweden. Go, Spanners and Matt, go. You're both from Sweden. Talk about your fish pond.
I like my fish pond very much. I eating the fish straight from the pond, Matthew.
Who did the hand the hood behind? The he the hard the hood the good fish, yeah? And the only fish does not know the when the thing to do.
And then you'd both be tagged out because it was hilarious but terrible, and 2 more people would come in, you pick a different accent.
Oh my God, that was good. I like that. I enjoyed it. Hey, Matt, you're an artistic fellow. You are. And I give you grief because you're a musician, and musicians are, I don't want to be unkind, but they're terrible people. Lazy, work shy, late for everything, and basically, oxygen thief is too harsh. I won't go that far, but you steal a living, if I'm honest. You blow through a tube for money, but I'll pay you a compliment on top of that, right?
There's no jealousy whatsoever, Matt. No,
None,
of that.
none.
Do you know
None of
what?
that.
I know.
Nope. No.
Huge amounts of jealousy. Huge amounts of jealousy. I live with an awful musician as well. My wife is a singer and a pianist, and she has spent her life doing what she loves. And in a way, yourself as well, Alice and Matt, this is what I'm striving to do now in the media world. Matt, you've spent your career doing what you love. I am so jealous of you, 100%. But when you came to Kent for the karting event, Matt and my wife sort of did a impromptu set together, improvising as well. So piano, jazz piano, and trumpet. And you guys had never really played together, Matt. So like that musical improv is quite similar, I'd imagine, to what we've been talking about here. Passing things off on each other, not shutting down the musical conversation.
Yep.
Oh, you knobheads. and
See, it works great, right? I was just
Yeah.
laughing.
And-
Clearly, I'm doing it right.
And
No,
this is why
it
everyone
is-
hates you.
There are a lot of similarities, but there's also I'm not as familiar with the onstage comedy improvisation or dramatic improvisation world. But in musical improvisation, in a jazz setting, you have a standard form. It's the song that you play. The chords are there, and then as the improviser, you can stick exactly to the chords that are there and pick your notes, or you can go outside of them. And then it's a conversation between you and the people who are backing you up, playing the chords behind you. And so there's a great deal of freedom in that, but there's also a responsibility. You sort of want to listen, and they can play something that you hear and you can grab onto it. You can play something they hear and they can grab onto it. You can substitute different chords, and it can get very technical and arcane, and it can become it can also become a very exclusionary game in a lot of ways too. But the best experiences I've always had have always been much like you described the improv being, where you start out with what's going to happen is going to happen, and it's up to us to just do something with it, whether it's bad or good.
Yes.
Those have always been like, it's always, I've just been amazed because I was classically trained. I went to one of the top conservatories in the country. And when I finally started playing like this, I was just like, oh, wow, did I ever perhaps, miss a boat that I should maybe have been paddling this whole time? Because it's too late for me to catch up now. I'm just sort of a dilettante a bit, even though I love it very much. And I know I bring something to the conversation because I've been a professional musician. But compared to what I hear in my head versus what I can get out of my horn, it's like I'm never going to get there.
Alice, it does feel like you're talking the same, different dialects of the same language in a way.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, oh no, musically that would be completely different. But yeah, it's notes instead of words. And I'm not particularly musical myself. I don't play any musical instruments, so I don't know what the correct terminology would be for any of this kind of stuff. But yeah, it sounds almost exactly the same, just with music, which sounds glorious. I'd love to hear that improv music. That would be brilliant.
Alice, Ryan, we have had you for 45 minutes here, so I'm going to wrap the show up soon. And I just knew going down the route of improv was going to be fantastic. I will say, Alice, genuinely, you are one of the most naturally talented people that I've come in contact with since I've embarked on this midlife crisis of media. And it's just always a pleasure sharing a microphone with you. So I'm just going to beg now, please tell me you will come back on Remain Indoors sometime soon.
Definitely. We've got so many more things we can discuss, including my Star Trek cookbook.
Oh, I know, because I briefed Alice on the 3 things I wanted to talk about. And as has been happening to us a lot, Matt, even with the F1, we put our 3 main topics. Like last week, it was cheating in F1, tyre management, and driver setups. And we talked for an hour and 20 minutes on the cheating and never got to anything else.
But it's again, it's whatever. It's a natural conversation, and just let it roll. Yes, and spanners. That's what we've learned today.
Yeah, I was in fact, when you mentioned cooking, I was so excited because I have a whole story from my real life that I was like, oh, someone who cooks. I have the best story about this
I
to
know.
share, but now I'll save it for next time.
Well, look, we'll save it for next time because I said to Alice, we'll do this. I really wanted to talk about the filmmaking, which we've not even touched on. And I want to talk about food because I've seen the Instagram with, it looks like your partner, your husband, is a keen cook, a baker.
Oh, you've upgraded him.
Have
You've
I?
upgraded him. He might have left now if you've said husband, boyfriend.
Oh, I see.
He might
yeah.
in the panic run out of the room.
Then it's not too late for him. We can save him. We can have words. Because you seem nice now. Oh, that explains why you're nice.
Yeah,
You're not a wife yet, and all wives are terrible and mean. Sorry, no, that's. Shall I say that's not true? For legal reasons, that's not true. But it probably definitely is. So that means we've got basically 2 shows worth of things with you.
Brilliant.
We'll save the food for you as well. And next time we get you on, we'll talk some video production and some food because we both have lots of food stories lined up. Some questions that I found on a Facebook post that I've been just firing at people towards the end of the show. So Alice, have you ever fired a gun?
Yes, I have more than once.
Now, is this just an improv thing, the way you don't want to shut it down, or have you really fired a weapon?
I have at a shooting range in Nottingham when I've gone to
Nice.
visit my dad, and that was great fun. All these huge guys, tattooed, bearded, and there was little old me turning up and hitting all the targets. Great
What
fun.
weapon? What
and
weapon?
for, you know what? I couldn't tell you. It was just a really cool heavy rifle. And then I've shot guns in films as well.
Oh, nice, with blanks, presumably. Okay, cool.
Yeah, well, it was more, unfortunately, because they were smaller guns, it wasn't necessarily blanks going off. It was more special effects afterwards, but it was
Oh,
still
I see.
cool.
Well, actually, blanks can be very dangerous. One of the first things we got taught in basic training was, if you ever see British soldiers around with their rifles, and then you see they've got a little yellow thing at the end, you'll have seen them, jumping out trucks with little yellow things on the end, and that is to stop the brass from the blank ammunition exploding out and hurting people. The first thing they did was, these blanks are safe, right? And they'd go and get a piece of fruit, like a melon or something, which is roughly the same kind of consistency as your head. Like, your survivability of your head is very similar to a melon. And they'd start just shooting up this melon, and you're like, ooh, yeah, I'll put my BFA on real tight. I'll make sure that is on real tight. And
Even if we haven't got any blanks in it, every gun that we've had, don't ever aim it anywhere near someone. Don't ever, even if you have to pull the trigger for the shot, don't ever aim at anyone, even if it's got nothing in it. So yeah.
Oh yeah, no, my dearly departed grandmother used to say, I did all that because she's Catholic, did all that. But she used to say, if you point a gun, but bear in mind this was in Manila, where access to firearms is a bit easier, because it would seem like a weird thing to say in Essex. She used to say, don't ever point a gun at someone in jest, because the devil will put a bullet in the chamber. So there you go, Alice. That's right. Let's see. Whiskey, tequila, or vodka?
Whiskey.
Whiskey. What kind? What are you
Whiskey.
into?
I like a good Jack Daniels.
Like a bourbon.
Nice bourbon. Something sweet for me. My
I
go-to is more of like an amaretto, but I will definitely have a whiskey as the secondary choice.
I think, Matt, you're like me with the single malts. You like something with opposite of that, not sweet, something where you can feel it grating against your soul as it goes down.
Yeah, pretty much. If it lights my throat on fire, then I'm a happy camper.
There we go. Brilliant. Alice, I'm going to try and get you back on as soon as we can. Where can people find you on the internet and find some of the work that you're doing?
On the interwebs, on Twitter, it's at Alice E. Ryan. That's Alice, ALICE, RYAN, in case you didn't know how to spell any of that. And then on Instagram, it's at _Alice Ryan _ as well. And Alice Ryan Actor on Facebook as well. Check out some of the stuff we've been working on during lockdown.
And on your Instagram, I think you've kind of nailed the look of, oh, you've just caught me recording something in a microphone, and like it's you've been papped. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love that.
Got to be done. Got to be done.
I've got to up my Instagram game. Guys, thank you for joining us on Remain Indoors. You can follow Matt at MattPT55, the show at Indoors Remain, and me at Spanners Ready. We'll be back here on Thursday, I believe, with Dr. Andrew Holding. And we'll talk about what we're doing next week. Should we push on? Should we stick with 3 shows a week? Whatever we do, work hard, be kind, and have fun. But remain indoors. That was groovy. That was.
Definitely groovy.
Is that-
Definitely groovy.